I've got wonderful people with me. I'm Sara Kooperman. I'm the CEO of SCW Fitness. And this is about excellent abs, fact or fiction. I just personally think they're just a total fiction, but that's just me, okay, after 4 children. How can I get a six-pack? That's been one of the top questions as we as Fit Pros have been hearing since the beginning of time. But we all know there's so much more to abs than doing 1,000 crunches every day. And interestingly enough, all of our experts here completely agree. So that's kind of cool. And we're going to shed some light on all of this. We've got Abbie Appel with us. She's the owner and CEO of Abbiefit Consulting, Program Solutions, Program Director of Fitspace Studios. She's an award-winning fitness educator. She's developed programs for Power Systems, Schwinn Cycling. She's the author of the SCW Pilates certification, as well as the bar certification, as well as what? What else haven't you written, Abbie?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got more coming. I've got more coming.
More coming. She, oh, you know what? That's the coolest thing about Abbie. She's always on top of it. Dane Robinson is a certified personal trainer through NASM, as well as a Lululemon ambassador. He also is a 2 times head coach of the year with the Atlanta Steam of the Legends Football League. I love that. He's on Daily Burn. He's on QVC. I can't figure out what else he's not on. That's not what we're talking about today. And not then today. We've got the amazing Kevin Mullins, who is a master instructor and personal trainer based out of Washington, D.C. Welcome to the cold climate. Those 2 people that live in the warmth, hate them. And his work has included being named a 2-time Men's Health Magazine Next Top Trainer. Not 1 time, you guys, but 2 times. And he's a contributor to major magazines and media outlets. He's also trained over 15,000 sessions in the past 10 years, the past decade. He is the author of the new functional training certification for SCW. We have just thrilled to have him join the SCW family. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And we also have the fantastic Mike Lieber, who helped us on Tuesday and helping us again tonight with our webinars. He's our cinematographer. He's fabulous. Do me a favor, everybody move your mouse, go down to the bottom of the screen. You know the drill. Find that green share screen button, go to the left, open the chat box, just click on it. Oh, look, everybody's saying hello already. Make sure you tell me your name and where you're from. We have almost 300 people that have registered. I think it was 260 yesterday, and I think it was well over 280 tonight. So we got Joanne from Knoxville, Tennessee, Nancy's from Maryland, Karen's from Tinley Park, Kent, Washington, Iowa, New Rochelle, New York, Pennsylvania, Washington State, North Carolina, Connecticut. See, all these people that live in the dark, cold north. I love you all. Thank you for joining me.
And there's Naples. There goes Naples, Florida. Oh,
shut up. I'm going to delete her, Bill, or I should say him. Sacramento, California, Carrie, go away. All right. So I'm excited about this because I think we all get obsessed with ab training and we want to think of the best way to do it. What are some techniques that I should be using with my clients that are not common practice for trainers? Now, Abbie, I'm going to start with you. And the reason I'm starting with Abbie is because you think it's all about the butt. No, you think it's all about laying on your back. That's what I'm not saying Abbie thinks this. I'm saying people on the call think it's all about crunches. And it may not even be us, it's our clients. What do you recommend?
Oh my gosh, well, we were just talking about this. I mean, I like movements that require more stability in the core. And so, yes, I do them with my classes. I do some of the things on the back. You know that I teach Pilates, so I do some, we call it supine spinal flexion. I do some V-ups, things like that from your back to a seated position. I do a few at the end of the class, sometimes in the middle of the class. And you guys probably know, we just mentioned, we talked a little bit about my philosophy. If doing a few crunches for somebody who has no back problems draws them to my class and keeps them coming back, I'm more than happy to do them. But I know that the abs, we're talking, when they're talking about the core, it's the entire midsection. And if you're trying to strengthen that area, and I'm talking about if you want to stabilize it or if you want to see those abs, doing more stability exercises is really kind of the way to go. And I'm talking about doing heavier movement, heavier deadlift, heavier squats, doing planking a little bit. And I know everybody wants to plank, and that's, but movements that you don't think require like as much core as they actually do, like your deadlifts or your squats or doing bent over rows with heavy dumbbells. All the research shows that those types of movements require more core. They activate the core more. We're talking about the abdominals, erectus, the transverse, the obliques, all those muscles that wrap around your spine, your multifidus. They require more of those muscles to engage than just doing a crunch. So that is the way to go.
Boom. Okay, the webinar is over. Thank you all.
Yeah, we can end it right now.
I was like, why are Dane and I
Done.
here? Because that was
Yeah.
perfect.
I don't know. You guys are good looking. I wanted to hear her talk. All right, but Dane, what are your thoughts?
So like all these webinars, I'm just going to piggyback off of what the last person said. Also, shout out to anybody from Maryland. I saw that in the chat. Awesome. I'm a Baltimore native myself. But that being said is, number one, again, if it's going to get people to your class and have them enjoy your training experience, then like do it. That's the part of it. You're creating an experience. Now, what you can do to really make sure it makes sense for your clients when we're talking about and I'll go off into programming for a second. When I do core training, I try not to end it off as like a grand finale and whatnot, because yeah, it makes people feel good and everything like that. But I always like to put that in the front end, like really right after, or kind of weaving it into my dynamic warm up. You think about this. We as instructors always say, brace your core, engage your core, da 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 da. If we already put that before our actual strength movements or before like the meat and potatoes of the workout that we're giving our clients and everything, then we've already primed the core. We've already, basically engaged the muscles that we want to, so that when we get into those deadlifts, those pushes, those squats, everything like that, we're already fired, we're already activated, and it gets them thinking along those lines where they don't have to search to turn on their core. We've already done those things. So I was like putting that in the front end of programming after dynamic warm up, or in between dynamic warm up, to get them going in the right direction for functional engagement of the core. But also it does make them feel good, in the beginning parts of the workout when they get some core work out. So it's a balance, as Fit Pros, we need to do between giving the client and the Joes and Janes what they want and what they kind of desire from like a core training session, but what we know that they need.
I like your concept of getting the core warmed up. I don't want to, it's not like we're pre-exhausting the muscle. We're warming it up, creating some self-awareness for our clients so that they can engage it throughout the workout. Kevin, I saw you nodding as Dane was talking. Yeah, John and Jane was talking. And I know you followed the same philosophy.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I really have nothing to say. Abbie said multifidi. That's our vocab word of the week. Dane hit. No, if I can add, I agree 100%. But I think it's even go a step further as we use the cue, brace your core a lot. And a lot of people don't even know really what that means. A lot of times when we use brace, our clientele interpret it as this sort of vacuuming or sucking in, because that's what you do when you look, you want to look good in a picture, you kind of pull everything in. But it's important to actually teach people to brace outwards and to expand that surface area, because that's going to cause a more full contraction of the rectus and transverse abdominals, the obliques, the serratus, which is like a hybrid shoulder muscle. And if you can get your shoulders in a more centrated position, the core is going to fire more optimally. And it flies in the face of what a lot of people think is core training, which is, Pilates centric, where it's pull the belly button to the spine or seek smaller. But if we learn actually how to brace outwards, we actually stress the muscle so that it can hypertrophy or grow with time, as well as get stronger. But then it also sets us up to understand how to be more pillar-like or brick-like when we take on a more complex or a heavy movement. I often teach the spine, and anybody here who's taken my functional training workshop through SCW, you've heard me say this, the core is like the center of a suspension bridge. Your hips are one big pillar. They are a structure that is buried in. You've got big bony structures. Your shoulders and your upper back complex are the other side of that bridge. Your abdominal wall, your erector spinae, your quadratus lumborum, your pelvic floor, that's the bridge. And so the other part of it is also understanding that when we talk abs, it's not just abs, it's also your glutes, it's your lats, it's the shoulders, it's everything in effect.
So what type of exercises can we do? Like I was asking Abbie, and I know she'll contribute, but Kevin, what type of exercises would you recommend? Like you nodded when Dane said, we've got to warm up the core. What type of exercises would you use to engage that warm up?
I absolutely love anterior loaded squats, or known as a goblet squat, because once the weight gets out in front of the body, the
All
abdominal
right, so
wall.
this is a squat. Give me the feet position, give me my weight distribution. What am I going to do?
Well, foot position is going to be very client dependent. If I had, I work at a facility, we have John Wall, an NBA player here. His squat position is going to look a lot different than me. I'm 5'10" on a good day that I jump. I'm more like a Mr. Potato Head who grew muscles. So squat position is going to be very different to our biomechanics. So foot position should be around shoulder width, 15 to 30 degrees, external rotation through the feet. We could play a little bit from there, but all in all, what we're really looking for is putting a weight out in front of the body, and so that when we squat, it emphasizes a hip down, thus keeping the core in a more vertical position versus the traditional folded over position people take when they squat. I love that as a preparatory ab movement, and then I'll superset that with something like a long lever plank or a side plank, something that is a little bit more core specific. And by pairing those two together, we get this big rock functional pattern. And then we get that sort of, to Dane and Abbie's credit, of, hey, I know why you're here, right? Like if somebody comes to a butt class, they want to do some butt stuff. Somebody comes and they want to work abs, then we got to get some abs in. And so the plank, side plank, crunch, so I like to pair a heavy deadlift or a heavy squat with the thing that they really want to do. I find that little marriage is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and I love the idea of a dynamic movement like the squat and more static movement like the plank. And if you integrate those, you can eat as much sugar as you want. See, Abbie, you're absolutely wrong. You never want those.
Eating. Enjoy.
Abbie was talk about the food. I never knew you were a fitness competitor.
Yeah. So, and I know when I would diet, I would diet down. You diet down for a fitness competition. You have to. And I would not only cut calories, but in the beginning, I would cut, carbs, which I didn't know as much as I know today. So I would cut carbs and I would eat a lot more protein. But after doing my first competition and actually winning my pro card, I went to a really good dietitian. And we talked about this a minute ago, but dietitians, mastered degreed dietitians are different than nutritionists. Let's just say that right off the bat. So I went to an amazing dietitian who said, why are you eating so few carbs when you need to move? You have to move. So she put me back on the carbs and started cutting my fat gradually, until the day of the competition. I mean, it was literally we went from, chicken to tuna to egg whites. That was over like 9 weeks. And I'm not kidding. So by the time I got to it, I think I was close to about 8% body fat, which for a woman is, we're not going to talk about the unhealthy part of that, but nonetheless, it was cutting back, not the carbs, it was cutting back the fat. Anyway, so she just gave me like the best information about maintaining the carbs, cutting back some of the fat, keeping the protein the same. And today, really what it comes down to is the biggest issue that I have is sugar. I don't know if anybody else has that same thing, but I love sugar. I'm a fly. Anybody seen the movie Fly when he just eats sugar? Like, I love sugar. And so if anybody can cut sugar, if I can cut sugar, anybody can cut sugar. So I cut sugar, and I'm not saying, fruit. I'm not talking about carbohydrates. I'm talking about refined sugar, like cake, cookies. Who likes cookies? Cookies, sweets, like chocolate. I cut a lot of that stuff out of my diet.
Chocolate?
And I still eat chocolate. All right. But I cut most of like because you don't even realize, I don't think anybody realizes, like, and it comes down to calories. like those big cookies. You know what I'm talking about? Not the little cookies that you
they're
make
as
and you
big
put
as
on. They're
yeah,
like
they're as
700,
big as
800.
your head. I had a
Right.
friend
They're
of mine
like,
come over from London. And we had a meeting and we had dinner, lunch, and then they served cookies for dessert. And he's
yeah,
like, this isn't cookie, this is a head. That's
right.
how America leads their final dessert course.
Right. And people don't realize if you do that a couple times a week, that's 1,500 calories. And you do it 2 weeks in a row, that is a pound. And I start doing the math on this. I'm like, I can have 2 glasses of wine a night and cut the cookies out, and my weight's still going to go down. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it really came down.
This webinar is not going well.
I know, sorry, but it really came. So if you want, so in other words, if you want to see your abs, one of is cut your calories a little bit. That's a big one. Seeing your abs. That means getting rid of some of the fat. But if you want to see them, cut your calories a little bit. I said it before. If I can cut sugar from my diet, everybody can cut. Anybody can.
And
Anybody.
we were talking about body type as well. Kevin, I love that you brought up the fact of body type. And Abbie had mentioned that, if you've got a very long torso, you can spread out that fat throughout the long torso and possibly see the abs more. If you're more of a short person, you're going to have a thicker layer around, maybe be hiding the abs. They might be, yeah. I'm not bringing this up to you for any other reason, but that body type issue, it makes a difference. And as a trainer, as an instructor, if we can share this information and make our clients, feel better about themselves, send them home with a couple bottles of wine rather than a few brownies, and at least it makes them feel, a little more comfortable where they're coming from. So how do you approach those different body types?
So that's always first, it's a conversation that has to be of acceptance to some level. It has to be non-judgmental. We can't change it. Trust me. If there was a magic potion to make myself 6'2", I would have had it. I would have had it at 15, and my life would be very different. But I think one of the things we do have to say is, so we come from a place of positive reinforcement and acceptance, but there's a big difference between body shape and how your body has been shaped. There are people who will say, I just have a poor shape, but they don't necessarily train hard. They eat whatever they want. They've lived an unhealthy lifestyle, and they just assume I'm big boned, which doesn't really exist. Some people have thicker bones, but it doesn't change your shape that much. What it ultimately comes down to, though, is recognizing that the appearance you take, you need to find idols or images to work towards of people your size. If I say to a trainer, let's say I hire a trainer, I want to look like this guy, and I show them Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I hope they help bring me back down to earth, because I could get jacked. I could be super muscular and strong, and I can add a tribal tattoo to my shoulder, but I'm never going to be 6'4", 260, and able to stay lean. I'm a 5'10", 198, 10% type of guy. And so I'm never going to be the behemoth. So my body's going to look very differently. So I think a trainer's job is to not belittle someone or tell them, this doesn't work. It's to help them find someone that kind of looks like their size, so that you can say, hey, this is what you look like. Like, I had to come to the realization, and I know I want to hear Dane talk about this, because he works with athletes. So this is going to be an awesome one for him to talk about. But for me, I realized that I was going to look more like a CrossFit competitor when I'm lean than the men's health cover model, simply because I really like heavy lifting. And as such, my obliques are pretty thick. I'm not going to be like this guy. I'm going to be lean and ripped up, but I'm going to always be a little blockier. And that was an acceptance for even myself.
Oh, that's great. And Dane?
Thank you for the baton handoff. No, I think Kevin touches upon so many different points that really make sense in Abbie as well. But here's the thing, guys, hopefully you're understanding, we're talking about mindset. We're talking about shifting a mindset and shifting your habits. You have Abbie talking about shifting habits on your nutrition, Kevin talking about shifting habits, or shifting your mindset to just be a little bit more kind of conscious about like what you're actually trying to achieve. From an athletic standpoint, it's funny enough, like I don't really have a six pack. Again, like I'm 6'2", 230 something. at my playing weight, I was 270 something back in 2005 or so, or no, 2010, something like that. I don't know. But the point being is that I was training my core for a purpose. My purpose was that so I didn't have a 6'7", 350-pound offensive tackle lay waste to me. It was a matter of making sure I could have performance in that. And I think before we hopped on here, I had mentioned, we had talked about, if we shift our clients' mindset again to performance, maybe they're trying, how often have we heard, man, I wish from some of our female clients, I wish I couldn't do, or I didn't have to do girl push-ups, or AKA push-ups on your knees. Oh man, I wish I could do this exercise or that and everything like that. I think when we train our core for performance, we can get them away from the aesthetic. We can get them tied to that outcome and that goal there, because what helps, outside of, chest and back when you're doing your push-up is core stability. And, for free 99, I'll toss this last one in here, which I always think is a positive, sneaky tactic, is that athletic training. The athletes that I've worked with, and when you look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, LeBron, John Wall, you name the athlete, they're probably in fair shape, really, and I'm using fair in a very low tense and whatnot, but they're in damn good shape. They have the six-pack, everything like that. But you got to think about the agility drills that they do, acceleration, deceleration, plyometrics, ballistic movement, where they have to react and change and shift their bodies on a dime, and that takes core stability. That takes core presence. I always tell my athletes, the best athletes have some of the best cores, because it's about functional mindset and functional positioning of the core, so that they can be the best on the court, the field, whatever. For our clients, it can be the same thing if they have goals from a performance side too. We just have to help them shift that mindset a little bit, unless, again, they are truly looking for that aesthetic, they have a competition coming up, then yes, then it goes into what we have to do and what we put in our body.
That's interesting. I loved it when I asked Abbie, what's the most important thing when, to get that six-pack ab, the first thing she said was good lighting. And I know that's Abbie's humor. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Put your hand down.
It's also true.
I know it's Abbie's sense of humor, but if you think about it, I'm going in a higher level, people. It's your perspective. It's your perspective. And Dane, that's what you're bringing to quote unquote light here, is that what is the focus of the workout? Is it, if you ask people, why am I working out? It's not necessarily because I want to lose weight. It's not necessarily because I want to look better. The number one reason people respond is I want to feel better. So if we can focus on the performance, if we can focus on how they feel, if we can focus on the accomplishments, maybe that will help. Somebody asked in the chat box about, what do you think about intermittent fasting? Betsy also said to Abbie, I think wine is a sugar as well, unfortunately.
You are correct.
Face that for us, Mike Lieber.
Betsy, you are correct.
But have you guys ever tried intermittent fasting? I know we're not going to talk about nutrition here. I know Abbie, you've got a bit of education in that area, but Kevin, you're kind of nodding and kind of looking up. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've written about probably 150,000 words on it for scientific journals. It's an amazing. It is an amazing.
Kevin, can I ask you to do one thing? Can you turn your mic up just a little bit, or maybe
turn it up?
Yeah, turn the volume up a little bit. Somebody chatted that they couldn't hear you as well. Okay, thanks.
How about now?
Oh yeah, bang on.
It's the sweet buttery sound of Irish voices. So as an individual who's written about it a lot, so intermittent fasting is, if anything, it is our ancestors' diet. It was the diet before diets were a thing, because we actually had to hunt and gather our food. We didn't have 7-Elevens in 600 BC to be like, I'm a little hungry, let me go get a tasty cake. It was, I need to hunt this bison, which might take days of tracking. So intermittent fasting is kind of tapping into our survival system. However, like everything that the media catches wind, things get exaggerated, things get misappropriated or misused. And so a lot of people see intermittent fasting as like, oh, if I just don't eat for most of the day, I'm going to lose weight. But the issue is that you end up backloading and getting all of your calories in the window, but you tend to start to choose easier, tastier carbohydrates, higher fat foods, because starvation, it makes us make lesser decisions. And for those who may not be 100% comfortable, what is intermittent fasting? It is the idea that we all have 24 hours in a day, and that you effectively fast for anywhere from 8 to 16 hours is what we've seen in the literature, up to 18 hours in some populations, and then you get all of your daily calories in this little window. It actually can be amazing for men in their 40s and 50s who are dealing with low testosterone, low growth hormone, as well as dealing with a leptin ghrelin imbalance in their digestive tract. It does not seem to be as promising in younger women who are of birthing age, if you will, because it can impact progesterone, estrogen, testosterone balance, and could cause adverse reactions to the sex cycle. It seems to be really reserved as a necessity that has been pushed as a diet. I'm not saying don't do it, but I would not jump right to, hey, I'm going to not eat for 15 hours, then eat all my calories in a 9-hour window. I would say, really try to have that nighttime, say, okay, after 8, I'm done eating, and then I'll open my window 8 the next day. That way you're kind of 12 and 12. It gives your body time to process what you've eaten the day before, run on its own natural fuels for a little while, but you're not quite stressing your body and potentially setting up the adverse reactions. I know that was long-winded. I'm sorry.
No, it was fascinating. Abbie and Dane, you can just turn your mics off. It's fine. No. Sorry about that. But I'm going to go back to Abbie because, the first thing I thought I would hear from Abbie would be, oh, I want you to do the hundreds. That's what I'm going to do with my abs. I'm going to do, and she's like, no. It's about heavy strength training. I'm going to let you go. And I want you to talk about that. One of your favorite ab exercises that you mentioned when we were chatting before we turned the webinar on.
Well, one of my favorite core exercises is doing a bent over row, alternating bent over row. So you're in basically a deadlift position, knees slightly bent, your back is almost parallel with the ground, and you're alternating, and it can be slow or fast, alternating rows. So elbow pulling up towards your spine or towards your rib cage. And just that alternating movement, again, makes your core have to stabilize, but also being bent over in that position also makes your core stable. It's one of my favorites, but I think we were talking, even I was reading some of the chain above, and just some of the movements that we do, we were talking about cardio versus doing strength. Honestly, the strength is just as important to seeing your abs, but also to engaging your core. So the strength movements, I love doing jumping movements. I love doing jumping movements because I think about when you land, oh my gosh, and then you guys can probably speak to this. I'm sure Dane and Kevin, you can speak to this, but when you land, oh my gosh, your core has to engage so much. So I love doing bent over rows. I love doing squats. I love doing heavy deadlift. And I love doing, and I'm not saying a ton of jumping. It might be even simulating a jump where you lift your body up, lift your heels off the ground, drive your hips forward, because it really comes from the hips, because your glutes are so important to core training, and then coming back down to a squat position or more of a hip hinge. So there's so much involved. There's so many ways that we can train our core, other than just doing the crunches that I know we get 100. So I still do 100, but it's in my Pilates class if I do 100.
Now she's upward to about 10 million.
And I think real quick, because we've all used the word heavy, I think it's important to point out that I don't want to speak for Dane and Abbie, but I've followed your work for years. I feel comfortable saying for all of us, we really do mean heavy, not just like this is 10 or 15 pounds. Like when you deadlift, even if you're in your 70s, you should be capable, assuming you're not, prescribe something from a doctor or have a contraindication, 1 times your body weight is a normal, healthy range deadlift. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be able to pick up 150. And so, again, I don't want to speak completely for them, but when we say things like heavy deadlifts, it's not just add 5 pounds. It's like it should be something that within 5 to 6 reps, you feel like you can't do another, because it is that level of bracing and survival response that really gets the core to maximally engage. And that's going to be what causes the stimulus adaptation response that gives you the abs you want.
Can I say one more thing really fast? Because I'm looking at a couple of the questions. One of them is, what about people that are 65 and over who can't jump? And it goes back to that accelerating, who somebody's wrote that accelerating up and coming back down. So it's just a little extra speed on the way up. You don't actually have to leave the floor and be airborne. It's a matter of maybe lifting your heels, which we know that everybody can benefit from, lifting the heels, getting that full extension, and then dropping the heels to come back down. So everybody, and going back to what you just said, I just love that about the heavy weight. I know I work with people that are like, do you mean 10 pounds? And I'm like, no, I don't mean an actual amount of weight. I mean, the amount of weight that you can lift for a certain amount of reps. So and again, everybody's going to be a little different, but we're talking about, the ACSM, we're not going to get into ACSM, but the guidelines for strength, hypertrophy, for power, how many times can you lift that? How many times can you lift that weight? If you can lift the weight 15 times, you probably can increase your load.
Yeah, and to going back to, again, Kevin, Abbie's point, when I hear Abbie talk about jumping and everything, I hear plyometric, I hear power, in that regard. So even for our active aging clients, 65 and up, again, I always, I remember this term, just core off the floor. There's plenty of opportunities to do core off the floor, for me, it is enjoying, yes, those ballistic movements, squat, jump, ice skaters, plyo lunges with rotation. The list goes on and on. But even for my clients that can't jump, I love putting a band in their hand. Put a band in their hand, tie it to a post, and you start getting into active lever avenues where, again, the longer the arm, the more torque that we can create on the center line of the body, whether it's just, again, anti-rotations, whether we can get into power rotations. Some of the other things that can help along into that and whatnot, medicine ball slams. I mean, sometimes it just helps where you just pick up, and sometimes, like, even for the mental health part of it, sometimes your conscious have to slam shit. If we can help it, if we can help them with their core as well, sometimes they got to slam shit down. So it's a medicine ball, it's a Dynamax ball, whichever. But I give the feeling, even in classes. Sorry, am I trying to keep the PG-13 show?
I'm like, beep. I'm like,
sorry, my bad.
Not from me. We're gonna get somewhere.
But I make 3 big cues, whether I'm coaching on camera, I'm coaching in a class, is hips, core, slam. Again, it's hinging at the hips, extension of the hips. Again, really lengthening through your core, and whether that's straight down the midline. I love working, again, frontal plane avenues. So that's going to be your side-to-side medicine ball slams. I digress. Power training
You don't digress. This is so important, and I think everybody gets terrified as soon as you get over the age of 50. Frankly, I'm 61 years old. And it's just like, oh my gosh, what do you mean I want to lift my body weight? What do you mean I want to da-da-da? It's like, just start gradually and build it up. It's like you would do this with any client. There's no reason to be afraid of it if you take it gradually and if you watch the growth process. It's not like, oh, I'm going to shut off this webinar and I'm going to run out and I'm going to bend over and row one grandchild and then the golden doodle, the other grandchild. Golden doodle. We don't have to jump into it that way, but we need to build up our clients. I mean, I'm just going to say for myself, Abbie, you were talking about that 7 pounds you just lost. I'm snapping my fingers. It did not happen that way, but it's the reduction of sugar. For me, it was the introduction of strength training. It's just, you lose muscle mass as you age, you lose muscle mass as you age, and muscle knows no age. And so if you want to be able to do these plyometric tight movements or heavy weight lifting, it's just a matter of building yourself up, and you will improve. You will improve. You do have to be more cautious as you age because the connective tissue tends to be less elastic. It gets dried out. Okay, like I'm dried out. Okay,
that's all we need to know.
Yeah. I love this group, but I don't know. So Dane, you're tapping things. What are you tapping here? What's going on?
Sorry, I was just responding back into the chat. I'm just got a question.
What did they ask?
Well, just some of those cueing that we kind of talked about on, again, from those SLAM avenues. Cueing can really, again, help when I think Kevin had mentioned it earlier when we talk about bracing the core. People think about like sucking it in, and I think zipping up, the core into the spine is a correct cue. But I think, again, if we think about pushing and engaging our core outwardly, because again, when I'm just going to go back to what I know, when I'm trying to absorb the force of a 325-pound 6'7" dude, and none of my body's response is not to like suck it in. Like I am pushing outward force on my core. Same thing as a deadlift. Same thing as a squat and press, say overhead, or a split jerk or a clean. All those different things. Like we're not sucking in our core. It's that outward force. So I think that helps us take our clients to a good performance level and a good mindset level when we can articulate it through our cueing. Not only just, and lest we forget, not only just the exercises are important, but how we coach it and how we cue it, because at the end of the day, we're responsible for the execution of it from our class, our clients, whichever, so just kind of keeping that in mind.
And it encourages that safety for all the extremities with the dynamic
Absolutely.
movement. You have the stability in the core. And it's not just the sucking in, like pretend like you're wearing sorry guys, but pretend like you're wearing a silk dress and hold it in tight. No, pretend your older brother is about to sock you in your stomach. And that's the sensation you want. We're all sitting here like, go ahead, Kevin.
That is literally well, not literally. I use imagine Mike Tyson's about to punch you in the stomach, man. But I say, like, imagine you're gonna take a punch. Like the way you brace for a punch is how you should brace to be strong. Now, when we are posing in our bathroom or we are doing a more Pilates-esque workout, there is the zipping in, feeling vertebrae by vertebrae, trying to pull into the multifidi. Yes, without a doubt. But it is understanding context. Really, I think, Dane, you said something amazing that I ended up writing down, and I love it. Train core off the floor primarily. Like the core is active no matter what you do, and because the information industry we're in, everybody's like abs. Instagram's like 16 new ab exercises. They're like, they're not new. You just are wearing different pants. The core is always active. The core never turns off. The core doesn't know if you're 5 or 505. The core doesn't care if you're a senior. It doesn't care if you're a junior. It doesn't care if you're an athlete or you work on computers all day. The core's job is to produce, reduce, and transduce forces throughout the body. The sciencey way of saying is that proximal stability yields distal mobility. So the more we lock down the center, the more the limbs can do. And so seniors need to stop seeing age as a death sentence. It's function follows format. And so if you treat yourself like a 65-year-old that can't do anything, guess what you're going to be? A 65-year-old who doesn't do anything. So, it is challenging yourself to challenge your anatomy, to challenge your functionality, because that's going to give you the results in your core. And then from there to see it, to see the abs, because that is the lecture, is we got to be smart with our diet. And I know he's not on this call, but I live by the code that one of my mentors, Dan John, taught me, and it was eat like an adult. It was that simple. Eat like an adult. If your idea of dinner is a protein and 16 Oreos, not an adult. Eat your greens, get your sleep, drink your water, and you'll be amazed at what you see. Plus, always check out your abs in the morning.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what are the most common misconceptions about abs that we as trainers should be debunking for our clients, and how do we convey this information to our clients?
Do we have another hour?
No, we don't actually. I can't believe you guys. It's already like we've got 5 minutes left. So okay, give me your best shot.
That's the crunch. That's the crunch. I think I think you're still reading. There's two things. People are still reading in some of these, fitness magazines, that you can do a gazillion crunch. I mean, how many, 100, 200, 1,000 crunches. And that's going to help you see your six pack. People still believe that. It's amazing how we still have to overcome that. I mean, I have to overcome it with my clients and with my classes. So the crunch, that's number one. So we know already that crunch is not, it's not there's so many, it's an exercise I do. I said in my class every once in a while, but I know I tell them this is not the best core exercise. That's one. And two, that this is kind of maybe leaving, but two is that heavy strength training is going to make you bigger. They're afraid to do it. Heavy strength training is going to give you more of a core. They think that heavy strength training, they're going to get bigger. I mean, I'm not kidding. All the way from, 15 years old, all the way up to 65 years old, 70 years old, they think they're going to get bigger from lifting heavy weight. I'm like, oh my gosh, you will not get big. I'm trying to get bigger. Who else is trying to get bigger?
I've been trying to get bigger since I started lifting, and I hit a wall. I just get stronger,
Right.
but I haven't changed body weight in 6 years. I just pick up bigger stuff.
I've changed body weight 4 times, and we were also talking about this. I have 4 kids. I have 4 massive boys. And I'm going to tell you, it's like I could get my abs back after the first child, after the second child. That third child was kind of the ringer for me, because you blow up that balloon and it's just going to come back. And the first place I'm going to gain weight is like right in the front. And it's just that reinforcement from my loved ones. My lovely husband always says, he keeps telling me, you look beautiful, you look beautiful. It's like, that's part of our job as trainers. You look gorgeous. Look at the baby. Would you look at the baby? It took you 9 months to get there. I always tell people, it's not going to take you 9 months to get back. It's going to take you 18 months to get back. And then then you think you're done with them at 18. Oh, no. You're stuck with them the rest of your life. But you have this, it's a great prize at the end of the crunch. It's a hell of a crunch. Okay. And being sensitive to that as trainers, I also think that that's important. We're going to try to leave with some closing words here. Abbie, thank you for that. I just finished my pregnancy whining. And Dane, what are your thoughts? Last closing words about abs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll wrap it up. I mean, it goes back to, we got to debunk the myth of crunching is going to get us where we want to be at. Again, if you can remember anything from this, is that, again, power training works. Work on core off the floor, and really at the end of the day, shift your mindset. If we can accomplish those 3 things for ourselves, even in our own training, then for our clients, then we're on a better path for success to creating the core that we want for our clients or ourselves and everything like that.
Yes. And Kevin?
Everything Dane said, and that in human physiology, isolation is never the answer. You can't really isolate anything. And so if you want the abs, you want the core of someone who trains a certain way, you look at an athlete or an actress or whatever, and you're like, I want that. You have to train like them. There isn't an isolation exercise or a machine you can buy on Instagram or a belly wrap that is going to do it. You have to train a specific way and be fearless with your effort.
Very good. I am going to end this wonderful webinar with a video. So here I've been moving and I'm shaking butts until this static flow. You can feel it, want to be. I try to catch me, 'cause I'm going my own way, and you'll never understand unless you walk in my shoes. I'm breaking free, so come with me. We should be dancing, I feel that soul, so let's control. We should be dancing. We have our certification smash is coming up December 11th through 13th, which is just next weekend. And Dane is going to be leading a certification. Abbie, unfortunately, is out of town, is unavailable, but she will lead our bar and Pilates certification in January. And then we've got the wonderful Kevin Mullins, who's going to be writing a functional training certification for us. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Mike Lieber, thank you for the fabulous video, and thank you for tonight. And everybody, don't eat sugar, do some plyometrics, lift heavy, and drink wine. Okay, everybody, good night.